Welcome to all you storm watchers, storm chasers, and Leanierologists out there. Welcome to another edition of Tempest Talks, where we discuss lean philosophy, principles, and tools, and how they impact our personal and professional lives. Today, we will be discussing lean quality with my friend Connie Gunther. By way of introduction of Connie brings more than 20 years of experience in aerospace, medical, and industrial industries. Her career at Rohr Industries, or Goodrich, is where she held leadership roles and rotated through manufacturing engineering, operations, quality, environmental health and safety, customer service, engineering systems, and supply chain. During her tenure at Goodrich, she was selected by executive management to join the leadership team chartered to transform Goodrich from a company on the brink of bankruptcy to a $7 billion company utilizing the Toyota production system or lean philosophy. During the 10-year transformation, she partnered with human resources and internal organizations to assess and implement a lean culture. By 2008, she was promoted to Goodrich headquarters in a leadership role where she was responsible for collaborating with business unit management to standardize the sourcing processes across 12 business units. For 5 years, she put her MBA in technology to use as she traveled internationally and deployed a global e-sourcing P2P system and conducted compliance site assessments at Goodrich sites and at suppliers. When United Technologies acquired Goodrich in 2012, her role expanded to merging both companies' ERP systems, processes, and supplier performance programs. In 2014, she left UTC to pursue consulting while taking care of an aging parent. Her company, Gunther Services Incorporated, is focused on providing annual ISO 9001 quality audits for manufacturing companies, conducting research on technology for entrepreneurs, preparing pitch decks, advising expanded international supply chains, like in Mexico. She works with company owners and executives on business development and transformational projects to control costs and grow their business. She is experienced in contract manufacturing with 5-axis machining, tooling, injection molding, and additive manufacturing. She's now expanding into AI applications, database cleansing, and data analysis in complementary applications. Connie is a member of ASQ, so those quality folks, very, very familiar with ASQ, has completed PMP at USD, an MBA from the University of Phoenix, a certification in engineering management from UCSD, a bachelor's from Redlands University, and as well as engineering technology coursework and business computer science. Have I missed anything, Connie?
No. It's like, how do you fill your time during your life, right? It's like, oh, it's amazing how many times I've pivoted in my career, just to keep going and learning new things all the time.
Totally. It's so interesting because I've done it several times. People ask me, what did you major in and why did you end up where you did? And I'm constantly telling them, believe it or not, I have no idea because I changed my major 5 times. Yeah.
But it happens. Yeah, it happens. And then you get into the working world. I graduated early from high school. So I always say I was a child employee at Rohr.
Wow, I didn't know that.
But when I started there, I didn't want to go work in a factory. I mean, that's kind of my impression was of aerospace back in the day. And then when I became exposed to how products are manufactured, I really fell in love with the creativity, the problem solving. It's like, oh my gosh, this is really challenging work. And so there's so many disciplines from producing a product, designing a product. So that definitely had me going there for quite a while.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I completely understand because before, I thought engineering was exciting before I learned about lean. But then being in an actual lean environment, I bet, during the transition period, which you were really involved in, I bet that was like, oh my goodness, this is a whole new world.
It is. Yeah, especially, when you're young and you're trying to learn how products get manufactured, you're like, this is the way we've always done it. And then you come in with the philosophy of, we're going to implement lean. And I still remember that day because I was new to leadership. And I was told by HR that our company was going to file for bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And it just, hit me in the gut. And I thought, oh my God, I can't believe it. I've been here, for quite some time already. And what can we do to turn it around, or can we turn it around? So I bought into that whole philosophy of what do we need to do to turn the company around, and was very committed. And and so had a lot of key people that came into my life to help me learn lean, and then also to build a real strong team and change the company.
Yeah, it's so true. We've talked a lot with a few of the members that you were very familiar with and probably worked hand in hand with. Some of the folks that I've interviewed in past Tempest Talks about that transition period, and they talked a lot about the culture. So, what do you think about lean quality as well as how it fits into the culture of a company?
Yeah, lean quality. It was interesting how, quality was looked at before, and it was more of, at the end of the product getting, finalized, you go and inspect it, make sure that it's, to all the specifications and all the technology the parameters that describe that it's a good product to go ahead and send to the customer. But once we started implementing lean, quality took on a completely different flavor. And we said, well,
Yeah.
we always have problems here at the end, and it's already a finished goods. And if we could catch this early on, maybe in the processing line or maybe in assembly, that we would stop that problem from happening. And so we wouldn't have so much rework going on. And that's where it definitely made a big difference in how we perceived quality, is just looking at that whole, value stream and the product, how it's manufactured.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I'm so glad you brought that up because traditional quality organizations, it was more like inspect to detect rather than doing preventative inspection, if you will, or earlier on inspection, or looking at the process and inspecting the process rather than the product once it's done. That was a huge transition for a lot of companies to transition into. It's a totally different mindset.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely a different mindset. And then, depending on the complexity, like aerospace, you can't really park the airplane in the sky and say, hey, we got a problem. We got to fix it
Right.
now, right? If the plane goes down. And I still remember in just training the folks in the quality organization, some of the inspectors, especially the new inspectors that come in. I'd run some videos about the airplane accidents, how the nacelle would drop off from under the wing of a plane. And I said,
Yeah.
you see this part we have here? We make this part. And if this isn't made correctly, that's what's going to happen. And it would just
Wow.
leave them with their mouth open going, really? I have that much of an impact, a product? I said, yes. Whatever you do, your decisions are going to influence the lives of those people on that plane. And so it was a
Yeah.
real eye opener for them. Yeah,
Wow. That's
definitely.
amazing. Wow. What kinds of quality systems were in place before lean and lean quality mindset started to come in?
Yeah, it was kind of interesting because I saw some of the paperwork where they were trying to implement quality circles and improvement methodologies, but it just never really caught on. And then people used to say, well, it's just program of the day, and we're not going to really do this. And everybody, management will go back to sleep, and then we'll go on our merry way doing things like we normally do. And
Yeah.
then when lean came in, I think because we were such a critical financial issue, that the president of the company is the one that stood behind, and all the leadership from the top down said we're going to buy into this, we're going to go do this. And I think that's what really made the difference in the company, is that the president of the company bought into it and was holding all his leadership accountable, and it just kind of trickled down. Every leader was
Wow.
asking the other leaders to be accountable, and they've got to report it back to the top, like how are we doing, what are we discovering as part of the issues that we're having as a company. And so
Yeah.
that definitely made a difference in how I can't say it's quickly to implement lean, because there were so many processes, office and
So
shop.
true.
Oh my gosh, I think it took 10 years before we said, hey, we got the good badge now. We're doing
Right.
good, we're making money, $7 billion company, and we're happy. And so yeah, I mean, but it took a long time. And
Yeah.
it became lean became part of how we spoke every day. It's like if you weren't using the lean terminologies and the lean documentation to improve our processes, then we were holding up the way we could be efficient as a company.
Yeah, and it actually was a huge part of our hiring process too.
Mhm.
I know in the introduction, we talked about working with the HR team to try to build the lean culture. I'm sure during a portion of that, they looked at recruitment as well. We wanted to recruit like-minded people. We didn't want to, hire people that were going to kind of sabotage, I hate to use that word, but kind of sabotage the progress, right?
Right, right. Yeah, we had to hire people that were comfortable in accepting change
Yeah.
because I mean that was the big rub. Is like if you didn't like change, this was probably not the company for you, you know. And so there were people that left early, and moved on their merry way because we wanted to be that world class manufacturing company. We wanted to be able to be in this book.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and we did, we had that goal and we were able to do that. So yeah, we knew we had to do something significant for our
Yeah.
industry.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I talked about this a little bit with Martin Lodge last year, but we talked about there was a point in time where the company was really, it's no joke, on the point of bankruptcy. They were selling furniture to make payroll. That's how bad it was. And so I imagine the quality organization, there was a lot of pressure on the quality organization
Mhm.
during that time, because if you weren't delivering, quality products,
Mhm.
then you weren't making any money at all, because you'd have all the recalls, and then who knows if there would be the potential for lawsuits and that kind of thing. Did you see the transition to a lean quality environment happen quicker within the quality department? Were they one of the easiest ones to kind of adapt? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think quality was always up to, making things better, trying to reduce the risk in how we produce product. And I think with lean coming in as the philosophy that they really did embrace it as well, and definitely had, some good um, KPIs, KPIs that we were making some significant improvements, when we started seeing the numbers of the products we're producing and we didn't have as many reworks or escapes, those were the other things that we were finally on a roll there. But during that, critical time, which I think, Martin Lodge did encounter, I did have kind of a larger organization. And I remember going like from 18 people to 2. And
Wow.
and it was really, really painful because
Wow.
I mean, the question there was, okay, if you had to shut down the company and it was just going to be you and a couple other people, who would they be? And can they take on the role of maintaining all those processes that you're responsible for? And so
Wow.
I'm like, oh, wow. So, the decisions like that are really critical because you have long-term employees, you have new employees. I mean, you have a whole group of different people with different talents supporting your organization, and then you have to
Yeah.
make a decision on how do you cut everybody to just the bare minimum to keep yourself operational.
Wow.
Otherwise, you can't make payroll, right? So that was part of the dilemma back in the day. And
Yeah.
even though that was real important as a lesson to us as a company, is that when we learned how to manage the processes and the time that it took, how many resources it took to accomplish some of the tasks for office and the shop, that we realized how many people we really needed to
Hmm.
support the operation. So we didn't add people just because, well, I might need, this person or this project coming in and I need an extra head for covering it. It's like, no way. If it wasn't part of the value stream and how you're supporting making product and the cash register was ringing, you were not going to bring that person in. So, yeah, there was a lot of that going on.
Yeah, that's interesting, because it kind of changed the mindset a little bit, like we were talking about before, from a governing the product to governing more of the process.
Mhm.
So, did your day-to-day responsibilities change as well as the culture developed?
It did because when we came up with the policy deployment methodology and
Mm.
then flowing that down to us, everything that came at our level, we had to put into, the document was the PDPR, and so that acronym there was to, at the executable level, is we would have to really identify how we tie back into the company strategy so that we knew that every day that we were there, we were going to be able to sell product or provide services. And if it wasn't related to that, then we shouldn't be working on those processes and projects. And so it really kept us focused in on how do you stick to the plan so that you can make money and then continue to scale your business. So,
do you think that's what companies and businesses should be most concerned about, or is there something else that they should be most concerned about?
yeah, I think that's really important, but the culture is really what made the company change. And I think what we used to see before, they used to call it the roar salute, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of companies, I think, still do that too. It's just not unique to our company. But yeah, at that time, there was a lot of finger pointing. Hey, it's not my responsibility. It's not in my wheelhouse. And so, it's like it's somebody else's job. It's not my job. You hear all these excuses, and it went to a point where we can't continue to operate like this. We have to take ownership, have accountability. And so by people understanding that this is what you're responsible for, they would take on that ownership. But in addition to just knowing that this is what you're responsible for, we wanted them to continue to innovate, to be creative, to have ideas and challenge, the day-to-day status quo and say, how can we improve this and work together as a team? So the culture started to change when people stopped throwing each other under the bus and saying, hey, let's not make this personal. Let's figure out how we can improve this process because it's really affecting my performance, our performance, right? And so that's, I think, what we felt was important, going forward with the culture.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, it's so true. A lot of businesses, especially since COVID, have recognized that a lot of their processes are broken. And so I see a lot of job postings for continuous improvement kind of people, but maybe not using that kind of language. They actually associate it with quality a lot. So have you noticed, in your experience, both consulting and across your vast experience, have you seen that continuous improvement teams are most often thrown in with the quality organization as well, or no?
Yeah, I usually see that, especially like in the larger companies, it tends to kind of pivot that way to be under the umbrella of quality, but really just maybe from kind of having consistency as an organization, but really the responsibilities for all employees to be part of that, contributing and rolling that back up to the executive level to say, we bought into this philosophy and we're making progress. And then being in the quality organizations is primarily a way to roll everything up and show status, that, hey, we are making progress. And this is what the financials look like. This is what the cash flow looks like in our company because we're doing it right. And I think, you have to have a group that's accountable for overseeing that.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it from that perspective before, but it makes total sense for the reason why it's most often thrown in with quality, because they're used to putting together those kinds of metrics and showing progress, because that's what they're responsible for, right? So is there a difference between quality assurance, quality control, and lean quality?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and there's different, methodologies. We have, the ISO standards, and they pull in lean to show that, we have that in place, and we have processes that we need to control. And when we outsource, that there's also controls on product being outsourced to suppliers. And then, you have the flavor of that with the ISO 9001, and then the 13485 for the medical standards, and then AS 9100 for the aerospace. So you have all those flavors of standards, and then lean, kind of built into that. But I think one of the great tools that we had, and I think I still have my book, that it's just been a wonderful book. This is where we integrated lean with project management.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if you have this one, but lean and project management is like, why not? Because really they're all projects that we're trying to to work on, to control, and there are different, dollar amounts of what we're trying to do. Some of them might take, a week to get done versus, a couple of years by the time you implement all the fixes that go on with the improvements. But that was really, really valuable to really look at it from anytime you're going to take on a new, let's say, customer, and you start addressing all the potential issues, the risk, mitigating the risk, controlling your cash flow, and using the tools from a project management perspective, along with Lean for the risk mitigation, controlling your intellectual property, all the deliverables, all of that just built right in there. And it's an excellent, excellent tool.
Yeah, it's so true. Well, I guess that goes along with the next question, which is, do you see a Lean influence in everything that you consult?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's Lean. It's interesting because Lean tends to be, more addressed like it's a heel to toe type of solution.
Yeah.
You got to start here, and then by the time you get to the end, then you'll have everything solved. But then Agile has come in, as another tool that was more introduced to the IT side, the software development side. And so that's also been pulled in to use that methodology so that it's not heel to toe, and you have more of consistent improvements in smaller buckets, as stories that you can implement quickly. And that way you're not taking as much time from heel to toe to implement a solution, that you're actually able to see the results on smaller deliverables. So
yeah. Have you seen that with some of your consulting groups, or even in past lives, where the management was kind of expecting it to be heel to toe? And what did you do to try to tell them, actually, this is why we call it continuous improvement? We're going to have 2 steps forward and 2 steps back quite often. How did you communicate that to them?
Yeah, I think sometimes, with management, they think that, or they might have not really a good insight into how some things can be fixed rather quickly, and others are going to take a while to really implement. And so, like in the case where I'm working with businesses to get them ready for either ISO certification or for audits, I usually just walk the shop with them. And then I point out, here's the visual controls. This will make it a lot easier. And if I notice things that are kind of potentially non-compliant, even with OSHA, I mean, you can definitely spot that in visual, point those things out. And these are quick fixes. And so I recommend there that there's some things like that could be, quick fixes, but then there's others that you might look at when you're walking how the part gets manufactured through your process, and you start using your standard work combination sheet. You're going, wow, 5 minutes here, an hour over there, a day over here, and then you total all that up, and then you look at what's the actual time to build it, and you're like, wow, I spent 3 days moving this thing around, and it only has like an hour and a half worth of value added time. It's like, something's wrong with my process, right? And it's like, well, okay, there you have to look at it and determine, it's like, do you want to create a manufacturing cell that, can you do that? Is that more cost effective to manage that time that way for your throughput? Or do you have to maybe add more capacity to really get that dollar, down to a viable few, that you've got equipment that's bolted on the floor, it's too expensive to really relocate, so, you've got to think through those scenarios and really let management know, these are the scenarios, and we can try things. Because I know at Roar, we moved some of these big pieces of equipment around and dug them out of the pits, and just, it was huge, huge effort. But we did, and once we got humming like that, it's like, wow, we made a difference. But it was continuous. It wasn't something that happened overnight. You said, hey, we need to move that that punch press over to this side. It's like,
it's so true. I think I'm trying to think, with my tenure, it was just shy of 10 years, and that shop floor must have changed at least 15 times in my tenure there, even, because it felt like every time I went to the floor, because you and I worked in supply chain at the time, when we'd go and visit the programs on the shop floor, it'd be like, wait a minute. Oh, okay, they're over on that side of the building now. Okay, so we'd have to reevaluate quite often, because I mean, it was a continuous improvement mindset. We were we were thinking that way. All employees were thinking that way. It was pretty rare to meet somebody that didn't understand what their standard work was or where it was located. It was just part of us. We knew what that meant.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the other aspect of it, especially with the shop, was the union, because I think
Yes.
the early days, I remembered, having to go into work and it's like, why are there people with weapons on the roof? And so,
Yeah.
oh, it's because of potential strike that could go on. And I thought, oh, okay. So, you learn all these things as you're, working for a manufacturing company in your union. And at the time, there was a lot of aggression with union and management. And then with Lean,
Yeah.
we were able to all agree on this philosophy to help each other, as we had different roles in the company, and have our union folks, work with management to really make a viable product and be successful and financial, because I mean, they were hurting once we got, some great pension plans, and we've got, great salary increases. I mean, everybody benefited from that. And so
Yeah.
we had some really, really good relationships, I think, with our union towards the latter part, of Goodrich. And then
Yeah.
that really helped out.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't thought about it in that sense before, but it's so true that the union really could have stopped all of that progress. And there were a few times where they did try to attempt to stop some of those things. But you're right. Like by the time I joined the organization, the union was part of the system. And the lean thinking. So it was almost like they were consulted if something was going to change or needed to change from a quality or compliance perspective. But they had learned that if they weren't going to think in a lean way, they weren't going to survive in the company for very long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that was, especially being a California manufacturing company, I mean, it's definitely really, really difficult, to try to keep everything in California, keep viable. There was a lot of, pressure on leadership to, if you're not making your numbers, that you got to move it out. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, we were trying to figure out all ways to, how do you balance it? Keep a, core competency here,
Yeah.
continuing to design and manufacture the critical products, and then, outsource to, what used to be other parts of the US, and then it expanded to globally, and Mexico, China, all these different countries that we said, okay, well, now the supply chain is international, what's that going to do for our lean, our lean
Yeah.
philosophy and controlling costs? So yeah, there was some definite challenges there.
Yeah, for sure. Would you say lean thinking is a driving force or a motivator for quality and compliance?
Yeah, it definitely is. I think, because again, it's like when it's all under your roof, you have a lot of control over
Mhm.
compliance, all the regulations and that. But then once you start outsourcing,
Yeah.
then you have to really build those relationships with those suppliers, or if it's part of your campus is international, you've got to do the same thing too. Now you've got to deal with the culture,
Yeah.
international cultures, and people need to, accept the same philosophies of how you're working with a lean principles.
Yeah, it's so true. I remember putting together, I think it was a work transfer event, if I remember right. It was something big, either building a facility, because it's been a few years now. It was either building a facility or moving stuff into said facility. And we were debating about what should go with a supplier and what should maintain in our own control, kind of a thing. And one of the factors that came up were these cultural things. So like in France, for instance, we did a lot of work with Airbus.
Yeah.
The entire country of France and Italy take the entire month of August off in the
Right.
summer. That's a big deal when you're planning for production and making sure that you're making your deliverables, right? So
Right.
those kinds of things affected us. I remember one of our suppliers was a large Muslim community, is what they were. And so when Ramadan came around, it impacted the workforce as well because they were fasting for several days, and staying up very late at night as well. All of those cultural things really did play a massive role in how we thought about things. And if we didn't think about lean program management,
Right.
that could have been a nightmare to deal with if we just decided, you know what, it's cheaper to make this in Asia, so we're just going to send all this stuff to Asia. Well,
Right.
there's a lot of cost that goes into that if we're not in a lean mindset,
Hmm. Yeah.
for sure.
And definitely having, the international flavor because of what I've seen over the years. I think it helps us just as a global, community to be
Yeah.
stronger, because
Yeah.
then you don't feel like we got it made here. We're in the US, now it's like when you travel and you go, which I did a lot of traveling when I was in corporate. Every other
Yes.
week I was somewhere in the world. And, and I really appreciated America more when I did
Yeah.
that travel. I thought,
Same.
wow, we've got some great things here. And even though we complain, politics and everything, it's like, it's not so bad. So
Yeah.
we just have to learn how to get along with each other, which, it goes, every country too, definitely
Yeah.
does. So, but yeah, we do. I think, as part of strengthening ourselves as communities, global communities, I think it's great. Sometimes other cultures are more advanced, like what we saw
Yes.
in machining,
It's
or they
true.
have really great craftsman abilities that we no longer really emphasize here in the US.
Yeah.
And so all of that, we want to be able to work together internationally, I think, to bring that talent forward and continue to become more, of a global society where we're not having such, depressed areas and
Yeah.
countries. And I think we can offer a lot of that.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And one of the ways that we can accomplish that is by having lean leaders as well.
Mhm.
So you've kind of touched on this a little bit before, but do you think leaders should drive a lean culture into their quality and compliance?
Yeah, it definitely has to come from the top. I think the leaders are the ones that are going to make that decision. And if their numbers are not showing, great in performance, it's
Yeah.
because they really haven't, turned over all the rocks to see what else can I do, to improve this business. Because if they're just focused on cost reduction and let's see if we can squeeze some more dollars out of that supplier, it's just
Yeah.
not going to do it. It's just going to ruin a relationship where you can
Totally.
really extend that supply chain and say, how can we make this a win-win for both of our companies? Because we
Totally.
know that you have to hire people in order to build products that we're asking you to build. And
Yeah.
so we want to make sure that we're both profitable because we need you in the long run.
Mhm.
But it makes more sense for you as a supplier to build this product. So that's kind of where
Yeah.
those relationships are really, really important, and where leadership needs to drive that lean culture and philosophy.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There's so much about the lean culture that shows respect for others, respect for our differences, support for change, allowing people to make mistakes, which in a traditional sense, there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity to allow people to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Um, I remember at one of the companies I worked for, Quality kind of got a bad name because they came out as the auditors, and it was really unfortunate because they could have created a relationship that was really positive with the workforce, but instead the workforce dreaded having Quality come out because Quality was going to find something wrong with my work. They're going to tell me how horrible I am and how wonderful they are. That's kind of how it was at this place I used to work for. But it was totally different in a lean environment. In a lean environment, it was much more collaborative, where it was Quality is not coming out to find something. I remember Bob telling me, remember, when you're going out to do something, even as simple as a 5S, a 5S evaluation, never call it an audit.
Yes.
Because it's an evaluation or it's an assessment, because you as the auditor or the assessor are there to help them learn, not to tell them what's wrong with them.
Right.
And that always stuck with me, because I feel bad for quality assessors and auditors out there, because it's like, oh, is that audit bait? Like, I need to get that out of my system so it's not audit bait, right?
Mhm.
And being an auditor like you are, have you seen that in the different places that you gone to audit for different requirements and so forth?
Yeah, I think with companies, especially when they're going to get ISO certified, it's like the
Yes.
dreaded, oh my gosh, I
Panic.
have to put this all in here. And then they're going to come, are they going to give me the certification? And then, and then they kind of have like this, dance routine, like, well, maybe we'll get you certified by this time. And, but you got to answer these questions. So, yeah, I try to make it easy for them to understand that this is an ongoing process, and so there's some deliverables that they have to adhere to really become a certified, ISO certified facility. And if you meet those, then, you just continue to improve from that. But it's not like there's this, picture perfect, this is what you're supposed to look and feel like and all that. And, then you'll be certified for life. It's like, no, it's a continuous effort. And that's why you go back every year and keep making, assessments on how are you guys doing? Are you improving? Because that is all tied to cash flow. When you think about it, at
Yes.
the end of the day, it's like all those assessments coming in. It's all about how are you managing your cash, because you're going to pay people, you're going to buy materials and products to make whatever you're making and then sell them. And so you got to be able to sell them at a profit. And if your processes are all driven with waste and take a lot of time to produce, then you're not going to be a profitable company.
Yeah. So do you think there is a difference when a leader drives a culture using the lean philosophy versus, one without? And do you think it does affect their quality and compliance?
Yeah, it definitely does. Like I said, with they're just focused on cash flow.
Mhm.
I think they're just hitting the tips of the iceberg there, and being
Yeah.
able to generate some revenue and show. But at some point they're going to be able to exhaust that, and
Mhm.
then what do? I mean, then you got to start looking at your processes, because even if you
Mhm.
start to scale and you're making money, trying to reduce costs by that particular methodology, you're
Yeah,
going to scale and have a lot of waste in your processes. So it's got to
totally.
be twofold if you're really looking at some drastic change in the organization.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad you mentioned that about cost and driving cost. In my experience, the leaders that are solely focused on cost and forgetting about culture, they struggle, because they're only looking at the bottom line, and they don't realize that they're actually struggling, because they're looking at the baseline, number, or the bottom line, I should say. They're looking at the bottom line, and they're not really paying attention to how their employees are feeling.
Mhm.
Burnout happens so quickly in an environment that is solely cost driven,
Yes.
because the employees start to feel like they're just cattle, like they can hire anybody to come and do this job.
Mhm.
If all they want is cost reduction, they'll get rid of me tomorrow, is another phrase that I hear. Like, when am I getting my pink slip or my golden parachute, as we used to say? When is my golden parachute coming, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the lean philosophy doesn't really do that, does it?
No, no, and I think with the lean philosophy, the part that people are missing is like, even though you define that this is a process and how you work in the process, if you don't allow people to be creative, to
Yes.
say, hey, I can figure out a better way of doing this. All right, let's see, and pull in the rest of the team and have that dialogue and see how can we improve this? Because at the end of the day, if you can reduce the amount of steps to do something, that's a
Yeah,
cash saver right then and there.
totally.
And then it also creates a positive win-win environment for the person that's suggesting the ideas and pulling
Yeah.
together the team. And now they feel like they're more owners of that process instead of just being doers of the process. Right. And
Yes.
so that's a big difference there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it does make a difference. And I think even from a standpoint of like, they say people that work that they're not necessarily giving their 100% when they come into work, and
Yeah.
especially if it's a mundane routine kind of job, you're going to get to a point where you start thinking like, can I automate this? Or, if I can, how can you
Yeah.
automate it? And maybe even the person that's working it would be the one to say, hey, this person, let's get them trained. I bet you they could figure out how to automate this job if they're, the type of person that likes challenges. And
Yeah.
so turn it around. And I remember us doing that too, is like, okay, we're going to send so-and-so to school to learn how to use this software because she's going to automate her job. And so they did. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like, they know it best. They know all the intricacies of it. And then once you engage people like that, then you feel like, they feel like they're really contributing.
Oh my goodness, it's so true. It's also interesting too with the lean culture. You start to see the talents of others as well.
Mhm.
So when without a lean culture in place, it's kind of like you're hired for this job and that's the job that you'll do. And if you do it really well, then you'll be promoted, kind of a thing. In a lean culture, it's more like, yeah, they do that job really, really well, but I also recognize that they're good at this, 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 and this as well.
Mhm.
So like you were saying, they may get, tapped on the shoulder to say, hey, we're starting a brand new value stream. We could really use your expertise on XYZ over here to see how we can make ABCD better.
Mhm.
And that's such a cool, uplifting kind of experience for the employee, because then they feel like, oh, I've got some value other than just, what I did in the past or what I'm doing now. I've got some value, and they see potential in me. I love that about it as well. Especially putting together Kaizen events. I know we both have been on, I don't even think we can count how many Kaizen events we've been on, where we're putting together the team for those Kaizen events. And we may pick some random people to be part of the team, but there's kind of a logic to it.
Yes.
Would you agree?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I remember the term when I first heard the term outside eyes. I'm like,
Oh,
okay, what does that mean? Outside
yeah.
eyes. It's like, and you have people, you got to pick the right person for that one, but it's that person that comes in and they start asking you like, why do you guys always do it like that? And you're
Yeah.
like, well, we've always done it this way. And it, we thought it was most efficient. And then when they start picking through it and you don't take it personal, right? It's just their
Right.
observation of what you're doing. And then you realize like, yeah, you're right. It's like I have one form to change something, and then I have another form to change the form that changes the form. And it's like, it's like I didn't realize I was doing that. It's like, so then you're like, well, that's not a very efficient way to update information, so you're like,
Which surprisingly happens a lot in a quality system.
mhm.
There are so many of those like loops. And if we're not paying attention to the process itself, oh my gosh, we could be buried in paperwork.
Yeah, we used to have a good collection of Dilbert cartoons. For all
Yes.
the different. Huh. There were so many scenarios that he had cartoons that were related to work. Yeah, just amazing.
It's so true. It's so funny. But but on a non-work related subject, have you done any like lean things with your family? Is there a lean philosophy
Oh,
that's been implemented with your family? Have they noticed?
yes, yes, definitely. I think when you first learning, like the 5 S's and then
Yeah.
labeling everything. I was my little sticker machine and labeling the refrigerator. If milk goes here, juice over here, butter on this side, fresh vegetables down here. So labeling everything, and then being meticulous and watching that. And yeah, that gives you ideas like how do you keep things from spoiling? Let's see, can I create some kind of a visual control
Yeah.
from spoiling? put a red dot on my on my milk carton and know that it's going to expire within a week, So,
Yeah.
so yeah, all those kind of tools you can bring them for home and help you be more efficient. And I guess I was always kind of that way as a kid too. When I
Yeah.
was growing up, I had seen my dad was real good about organizing all of his socks, all nicely in his drawers, and then his shirts were all hung, with the long sleeves together and the short sleeves together and all color coded. And I just thought
Yeah.
that was the way you should organize your things. And so I took on to that when I was younger, and I really liked it. Where another sibling I had, it's like, no, they weren't that organized, and they weren't about to be that organized. So we were complete opposites. I really enjoyed it because it was easy to find things and
Yeah.
know how how to go in and just keep things nice. When you needed them, they were always pressed and looking good and all that, versus
Yeah.
digging through
Easy
a
to
drawer like, oh. So
I've totally subscribed to the Marie Kondo way of putting stuff in my drawer because I'm like, oh my goodness, I can find stuff now.
yeah, and it's
I'm
a
wearing
continuous
clothes I didn't
thing.
know I had.
And you do have your ups and downs, even though you try to be
Yeah.
lean, and all of a sudden life happens. You're like, oh my gosh, I let things get kind of out of control. And then to go back and start
It's so
purging.
true.
Mhm.
It's so true. I think that happens more often than we think it does in our personal lives, where the beginning of the year, especially, I think we're all like gung ho on, I'm going to be organized this year. I'm going to make this happen. It's going to be great. And then we make it to like about halfway through, and it's like, oh, I still haven't started that project yet. So then we reevaluate our process, right? And then we think about how to do it a little bit different. But yeah, it's an interesting process for sure. Well, have we missed anything that you want to share?
No, I think, like I said, I think culture is like the most important, really. If that isn't something that gets addressed early on, even
Mhm.
before implementing lean, is to really gauge the culture that you have in a company. I think
Yeah,
that's the best way to start, and make sure that when you do start implementing lean, that's not going to be something that holds you up, because
yeah,
there's not trust, and there's respect, and good communication. I think that was really important when we had HR, as I said, partner with HR, because
yeah.
they did an excellent job with organizational development. Sue Bingham, I believe, was early on in
Oh
there, and
yeah,
and she definitely made an impact. And kudos to her on that, because we learned how to respect each other,
yeah,
and how to not take a process issue as a personal. If we
yeah.
felt it was affecting performance, that we knew, okay, let's talk about this. Maybe this needs to have a poke yoke solution to it, right? To make it streamline it, or maybe just the process is so complex that it's
Yeah.
not easy for everybody to understand if you're not doing it every single day.
Mhm.
So yeah, definitely a culture um, being addressed. The organizational development is important.
I'm glad you brought that up because it's so true. So many companies, especially those that may want to utilize our consulting services,
Hmm.
some of them hear the term lean or lean Six Sigma or Six Sigma alone or whatever the latest buzzword is. um, and they hire a consultant to come in and make their company lean,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, I cautiously look at some of those folks because it's like, okay, what is the intent behind this? Are you really wanting to become lean because it's the right thing to do for your not only your business, but for your employees as well? Or are you doing it because it's the latest thing and it's a requirement on an audit somewhere?
Hmm.
That you can show that you've done 5S or that you've done process improvements or have been monitoring your processes, et cetera. Um, I look at those things critically because if they're not thinking about the cultural aspect, as you've mentioned before, if they're not thinking about the cultural aspect, I know immediately that they're not going to get very far in a lean transformation.
Hmm.
Would you agree?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That has to be, um, that trust has to really be there.
Yeah.
And even if, somebody that's a, small business owner is kind of don't always deal directly with people in the shop, he lets somebody else take care of that business.
Yeah.
They've got to be able to open it up so that they have a little bit better dialogue with their people so that they can feel that there's trust really there. And
Yeah.
that if people come up and say, well, this is broken or this is wrong, that they don't take it out on them and accuse them of, being the instigator or that. And so they need to get some of these things aired out, but in an environment where it's safe to communicate that. And I think that was also, really important, because sometimes you see that where companies have favoritism, going on, and, all kinds of scenarios on personnel. And you're like, oh, wow, how do we deal with that? It's like when we're trying to create a culture of change and innovation. It's like, but you have to address those issues there, because everybody brings some kind of talent to the table, regardless of where they're from and how much education they have or they don't have. And so we need to learn to, respect everybody's place at that table and be able to contribute to the innovation and changing a company.
Brilliantly said. Thank you so much, Connie. It's been so good talking to you today. Thank you so much for all of your insight, and your expertise is just absolutely incredible. Please talk a little bit about your consulting business. I don't know if you're looking for more clients, but you're welcome to.
Definitely can take on some additional clients to, kind of get them started and where they need to be. And also, like I said, the AI is kind of a newer area that I've been tapping into and getting up to speed, which is more along the lines of data science, because data really tells you a lot about the health of the company. It's like
does.
that pulse of, and if you're not doing a good job managing your data, and you're just thinking it's there because it's in a system, oh, then you're up for a rude awakening of it. It's because you can really get some great snapshots of your health of your organization by just the data that you have in your various systems, and then bringing that together. So I think that's where the data science aspect really contributes to that, and it complements Lean.
Yes, it does. Very much so. And Six Sigma, depending on where the data is stored, of course, and how you can analyze it. But absolutely. Well, thank you again. I really appreciate it. Is there anything else before we close today?
No, thank you very much. I love the opportunity to chat with you and your audience, and looking forward to any questions that come up. I'm definitely here to answer them.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. We'd love to have you come back as well.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Great. Well, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll be chatting soon, I'm sure.
All right. You too. Have a good one.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.